Rostam, Georgia, how you doing?
Doing good.
Good.
Excellent. Where are you right now?
You want to
I'm
go first,
in,
Rostam?
I'm in my studio in Los Angeles, California.
And I'm in my bedroom in sunny London.
Excellent. So, Rostam, you are where the magic happened for It's Euphoric right now.
Yes, that is
Yeah.
that is true.
Can we just clear up your origin myth to start? How did you two start working together in the first place?
Well, it's actually an artist named Kasha played me um, a Muramasa song that had not been finished or come out yet, which was the song that Muramasa and Georgia did together, "Live Like We're Dancing," and I really loved it. And I think it's rare that I hear a song one time and I have that, you know, like instant sort of connection with it. And I really love George's voice, and I felt like there's something very original happening there. And and I think that led me to I think just like follow Georgia on Instagram and then message her and say like, if you're ever in LA, let's work on some music together.
This was a start of a bit of a journey for you, wasn't it, Georgia, in terms of working with other people? Because as I understand it, this is the first record or first album of yours where you've collaborated with somebody else. What was that experience like?
It was a sort of instant kind of I don't know, just an instant sort of connection between us. And I just felt very liberated, excited, working with Rostam on that first day. And I was just like, this should be the next direction for the next record. And so I think I came out of those couple of days just really, you know, wanting to do more with him. And so it was kind of even before Seeking Thrills came out, I had already kind of planted the seeds of perhaps working with Rostam for more, on new music. So it was kind of like, I don't think I would have done that with anyone else. It was just that there was this kind of special connection, I think.
You had this first kind of very fruitful recording session that sounds like it sort of set the tone in a way
Mm.
for the album. I mean, that track, it starts off with some kind of quite sunbeamy ambient textures. Were you both sort of listening to a lot of ambient records and sort of bringing that into the mix?
I think Georgia and I have a shared kind of like love of a lot of music. And then we also
Mm.
have different things that inspire us that are unique to each individual person.
Mm.
What was interesting about, just to pick up the story again. So that was October 2019 when we worked together. And then of course, like we sort of had a vague plan to get together in the new year and maybe finish the song, maybe work on other music. But come March 2020, the whole world shut
Yeah.
down.
Mm.
So there was like this kind of like 2 years where we couldn't be in the same space. I think a lot of the record actually Georgia started in that time frame, and maybe even before we did It's Euphoric.
Mm.
And sometimes Georgia would send me things. Other times, like I'd hear it for the first time when she got to LA in November of 2021.
21. Yeah.
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 How did you find your feet with each other creatively? Rostam, did you have specific ideas that you wanted to bring into the mix or things that you wanted to do differently with this record?
Well, what I wanted to do was make a dance record with Georgia because I felt like that was sort of what she could do in a way that maybe no one had done before. And what I mean by that is to sort of incorporate like organic elements and really sort of like fully fleshed out songs with music that made you want to dance. So that was kind of what felt important to me and what made me attracted to the project. And it was in the back of my mind, like I really don't want us to do too many slow songs, and I want to feel like the record is something that you can put on and really be entranced by, and feel like, you know, please don't stop the music, you know, like don't stop dancing. And like that, just that kind of like that feeling of momentum that's sustained, that like, you know, something that you can put on and go for a run, work out, something that has like that kind of energy that keeps you uplifted. And I think there was one version of the track list as we were mastering the album. We experimented with a few different track lists. I think there was one version where I was like, hold on a second. We lost that. We lost that thing of like every song coming like one after the other of just like propulsion. And so it became important to me. I was like, can we really try and like put all these fast songs in the front half and make it so that the album almost like feels like it's not slowing down until the end.
That was such an important that was such an important moment when you said that, actually, for the track listing, because it really, one of the things that since the record's been out only for a couple of days, everyone has commented on the energy and the feeling of the record from start to finish, that it is there's an energy running through it that is infectious and people don't want it to stop. We were I think it's really right to say that Rostam was the whole time thinking about the kind of energy and the movement in the songs. And I think we really pulled it off, actually.
Just to go back to this how you sort of connected together and how you sort of found your feet. What did you discover about yourself?
I just had the most incredible time making this record with Rostam. Like I just felt like I learned so much about songwriting, the creative process, production, mix it. You know, it was a total kind of collaborative experience, really. And I learned so much about myself, really. And I think most importantly, like that trust and honesty, I think, is so important in the studio. And I think Rostam and I had kind of trust and honesty with each other from the get-go. Like, we were very honest with each other when something didn't sound good. And Ross, you know, and I was kind of like, there were times where Rostam would be like, trust this, you know, we're getting there. Like, with some things you never know. I remember being a bit apprehensive. He was like, trust this, you know, and you sort of, I don't know, you just sort of, yeah, I think I just really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. And
yeah, one thing that I was reminding Georgia, I was like, you know, if we change the chords in this song and you listen to it tomorrow and you don't like it, we can always go back. And I think that's something that you encounter a lot, I think, in collaboration, just like this sort of trading of ideas. I feel very strongly, like, as a producer, it's always my job to make artists happy, and collaborators like happy. And there's no version of it there's no version of a Georgia album that comes out that Georgia's not happy with. And I think sometimes that's something that I would remind Georgia of, just like, let's try this. And if you don't like it, we'll go back. And you're the person that will always be the decision maker.
Did you get to hang out and experience or enjoy much of LA outside of working hard?
Yeah, we did. I think at one point Georgia's birthday kind of coincided with us. We're not totally done with the record, but we were close, and so we had a birthday party for Georgia here in LA, and Declan McKenna was in town, and he came by, and yeah, it was a very kind of like, so yeah, it was a social environment, and anytime that you're making a whole album with somebody, you're gonna have your share of doing things for fun in addition to working. So we had a nice balance of that.
We were quite hard on ourselves, actually, thinking about it, Rostam. We were quite like, we had a sort of, we were sort of, we had a momentum.
Yeah, we definitely felt like we needed to get things done to get the record done. I think it was like right after George's birthday that we had about 10 days left, and I really felt the pressure because I was like, we got to record all the final vocal takes, not the scratch vocal takes. They have to be the final ones. And there was a couple songs where I hadn't realized like that Georgia wanted to revise the lyrics, and I was like, okay, let's do it. I wasn't counting on that, but it was interesting because we were, there's a thing that happens when you have to get something done. It's like, okay, now I'm going to decide what the final lyrics are. For Georgia, I think that's what she was making those decisions at the same time that we were recording those vocals, which I think it's in some ways that's kind of when you have to do it, when it's time to get those last vocal takes in. It's like, okay, the second verse, are you going to change a few words? Are you going to keep them the same? What's it going to be?
Again, that sense of urgency.
Yeah, I did with lyrics. I felt like I wanted to write them, the majority of them in LA, because I wanted the adventure to kind of inspire the lyrics. But there was a moment with that 10 days to go where I was a bit like, okay, I need to actually write the choruses here, and which is good. Yeah.
Can you talk a little about, there's a song I'm curious for you to talk a little bit about, because I think it has an interesting story that kind of connects like Europe and London and America, which is the story behind Mountain Song. Because I feel like you came in, you had started the production, you had started the songwriting, you already had the title Mountain Song. And I remember we worked on it. We explored like different options for lyrics on that song together. But I remember you had this vision that you used to talk about, and you were like, I was swimming in Ibiza and I saw this mountain kind of like appear as I was swimming in a cove. And yeah, maybe could you just tell us a little bit about that? Because I'd like to revisit that, because I remember that being a really fun moment in our process.
Sure. In 2020, I took a trip to Ibiza, and I had this really magical spiritual time there, actually, because San Antonio was completely shut. All the clubs were shut. Everything was, kind of kaput. But there's something about that island, which obviously people reference all the time, about the Balearic energy, and it has, it's played a part in a lot of different musics that have come from the island, and particularly in dance music. And I sort of had this moment of a friend of mine, we took his boat to a cove next to the really next to the spiritual kind of stone of Ibiza, where people go and touch the stone. I've forgotten what they call it now, but there's some sort of energy that you passes on to you from this stone. And we were sort of sitting there watching the sun go down. He was playing like some sort of, like, I think it was Air or something like that, walkie-talkie album. And it was just like this absolute kind of pure magical moment in Ibiza. No one in the water, just us. And yeah, this sun was going down, and I saw this kind of like mountain appear which I don't think it, you know, there was obviously wasn't a mountain, but I just, in that moment, in that split moment, I felt the happiest I've ever felt. And I just, yeah, I remember being like this image, implanting it in throughout the writing process. Like what was that, always going to that feeling. Like I want these songs to evoke that feeling of the happiness that I felt in that moment. And yeah, Mountain, I guess, like I told that to you, I said that to you, Rostam, and we worked on the lyrics. And yeah, and the lyrics are, I want to jump into the ocean with you. That's what I did. You know, it was like this whole kind of experience, yeah, of seeing you know.
Wait,
just
Georgia,
pure...
can you clarify something? You said you were swimming and you saw a mountain, but it wasn't a mountain. Was it in the clouds? What
yeah, it was like a vision. I don't know.
Oh,
it was
wow.
just, yeah, it was just like a sort of, I don't know, maybe it was the shape of a cloud. Yeah, I was there swimming and I just saw this kind of mountain. And I don't know, maybe I did have some sort of like spiritual episode.
Maybe
that was
a different plane.
I did. Maybe that was the Ibiza. That's what they talk about in Ibiza. That's the state that everyone tries to get into. Yeah, I did. I saw this like mountain. I really did. I remember it very clearly.
It does sound like a scene from The Beach, the film The Beach, without, you know, before they find the sharks, or the sharks find them. I know that that kind of Balearic energy, that sort of William Orbit sound, is definitely woven throughout the record.
Well, after you know, then in the second lockdown, which felt quite miserable, actually, I think everyone felt quite miserable. One night, The Beach came on, and I just was like, "Oh my God, I can relate to that feeling," because I had that feeling in the ocean in Ibiza. Yeah, it's just like this yearning, this magical kind of yearning for something to just elevate you to some other plane. And I remember when I got to LA, I remember referencing The Beach, but particularly that front half, not that second half of the film. That kind of atmosphere I found very inspiring.
Yeah, we actually did watch The Beach while we were making the record in LA. We had a night.
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah. I remember that.
I did wonder.
Yeah. Well, I think also for me, I was listening to kind of Ray of Light, Madonna. I was listening to a lot of William Orbit productions. I always have throughout my whole life. I just love that era. I love that Madonna era in particular. And yeah, I just felt like this could be an interesting reference point for some of the production. And then I think in Mountain Song, you can hear all of those sort of textures within it. People love that song. Everyone absolutely adores Mountain Song.
I'm so glad you brought it up, because it's such an astonishing track. I think just kind of weightlessness, and obviously the Euphoric mixed with this kind of this maximalism. You know, if you think about Hudson Mohawk, it made me think of Enya. There's a lot going on. But I'm glad that you brought up texture, because and I love that we're talking about this kind of very spiritual, kind of warm Balearic experience, because you made this very sort of this warm record, and then you mixed it in the freezing cold upstate New York with David Friedman.
That's right.
The contrast is quite shocking.
Yes. It was shocking for us when we arrived in New York together, and it was freezing cold, and we found out, we each got a very small bedroom to ourselves. Not that small, but we each got a bedroom. We shared a bathroom, and it was literally above the studio. And the work schedule was Dave and his son Mike, who assists him, showed up at noon every day, and they would work until about 8. And at 8:00, they'd have a mix for us to listen to. And Georgia and I would go in and listen to the mix and make our notes. And then from there until midnight, we got to revise the mix. And that was kind of how every day went. And simultaneously, there was snow everywhere.
We were literally snowed in one day, weren't we? We couldn't, I think for a couple of days, actually, we couldn't even open the front door.
Yeah. But we did. Oh, yeah, it's funny. I'm just reminded, Georgia, what was the name of that town that we explored together? Starts with Lily or...
Oh, yeah, Lilydale.
Yeah, I think that's what it was called. It was a very... I don't know what is going on in the town, but it was like a very it was sort of felt connected at a source that was it was a very different energy than the record that we were making together. So
is the adventure over? Rostam, are you going to come to London? Have you been to Georgia's studio yet?
It's so funny. About 3 or 4 months ago, I happened to be in London, and that was the first time I got to actually see Georgia's studio, where she had started, 8 out of 10 of these songs. So it was interesting. It was kind of like a coming full circle for us to spend a little bit of time just in her studio. And yeah, I think there's more time to be spent together in the studio, and I'm very excited for what Georgia does next as a producer, because she was a producer before we collaborated on the production of this record. She was very much a producer throughout the production process on this album. And now I think she's kind of exploring working as a collaborator, working as a producer with other artists. And yeah, it's exciting to see where she takes that. And I'm a huge fan, so I'm excited to see what she does next.
That's so kind.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.